bummed about. I love doing what I do. I love being able to have a direction and have, and be that head coach that has a play, and let's see if the team can, do it. And it's just a great job. I love doing it. And I'll tell you what, it's not hard here. I mean, I went to watch the state fair and I couldn't walk, more than 30, 40 feet without someone coming up and saying hi, and how much they appreciate the work of the men and women, and how much they appreciate what we're trying to accomplish. It is not difficult to love this job. And so, when you get that, it pumps you up and it invigorates you. And it may be, and that's just me. And I know internally, I'm sure that happens to other people that may not be as high energy, but, I pride myself in that.
Man, I love this energy. It's so great. Chief, I was going to ask you about your time in San Jose. What are some of the lessons you learned that you brought to Dallas with you from San Jose?
One of the lessons I learned, and I'll say it, is really, it's funny because I worked on the narcotics enforcement team.
Right.
Took a lot of criminals off our streets. I was on the SWAT team, and did that for a few years until I got promoted. And then I was a homicide investigator for a while. And then I was a night detective out of homicide. And then I became a homicide investigator. And then I got promoted to lieutenant after all that. Right. So one of my mentors looks at me and he goes, "We need to round you out." And so they send me to be the commander of the community services division, which was the community outreach arm in the department. And I tell you what, and people thought, okay, this guy, SWAT guy, narco guy, homicide guy, now is going to be the commander of community services, right? And I just jumped in with both feet. And it was just so awesome. And it was one of the first times, and I'll get serious for a second and just say it was one of the first times when I realized that being a police officer was more than the handcuffs that I had on my belt. And it was just a great experience. And, at the time, everyone always hates the words, we need to round you out, but it absolutely worked in my favor. And there's no way I would have been here without that. It was so important to realize that, because you know what, as cops, and no pun intended, but one of the reasons I became a cop is I love the show cops. I got hired in the early 90s, and it's like, I'm not going to lie about it. And I think anybody back then that became a cop and told you otherwise, they'd be lying about the fact that did not, something that they're like, man, I want to do that. That looks fun. Yeah. This job is fun, and it is fun, but there's a lot more to it. And sometimes you have to go through to learn that. I'm lucky to say that, to the extent that I learned what I learned while I was already on the job, you can start doing that a little earlier now, not just with applicants and future recruits, but recruits in the academy, to let them know, hey, listen, everything you're learning is important, but we still need to learn a heavy dose of community. The support of men and women is important. Hey, listen, I say this all the time, and when we're wrong, we're wrong. But when we're right, I will defend my men and women to the hilt, regardless of what the outside noise is. That's something that I learned. That's something that I'll carry over. That's just part of me. And doing that, learning also as well, though, I wear my emotions on my sleeve, and sometimes I need to relax a little bit, particularly doing things with media, talking about controversial things, doing things like that is important for me to recognize as well. And then, but I like to be a collaborator. I like to bring people to the table. Not everyone's going to agree with me. And you know what? I have a saying: if you want to be liked by everyone, don't be a leader. Go sell ice cream. Because that's not what it's all about. But to the extent that you can bring people around the table and let them feel that they have a voice, and oftentimes, a lot of the things that the groups that I bring around me tell me, make me think, maybe there's a different way to do it. So I think those are things that have helped me certainly. And that I'll continue to practice.
It's Deconstructing Dallas. We are talking with Dallas Chief of Police, Chief Eddie Garcia. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about some of the crime initiatives going on in Dallas. So hang with us through the break. Shawn Williams, Ryan Trimble, Deconstructing Dallas. We'll be right back right after this.
Did you hear? Your local college football team is undefeated. That's right, the SMU Mustangs are 6-0 and riding high into the second half of the season. And now, you and the family can be part of the action when the Mustangs take on Tulane on Thursday, October 21st. For just $60, you'll get 2 tickets to the game, plus 2 fried shrimp po' boys. It's a deal you can't beat to see a team that can't be beat. So pony up today by calling my friend Percy Richards at the SMU ticket office at 214-SMU-GAME or by visiting smumustangs.com. Don't be a fan later. Get your tickets today.
Welcome back, Deconstructing Dallas. Ryan Trimble, Shawn Williams. We are with Dallas Chief of Police Eddie Garcia, who reminded me of my first sports cry when Dwight Clark caught that pass in the back of the end zone in San Francisco. And so I just got to refocus myself here after that. Chief, we know that violent crime is always a metric that people in Dallas are talking about. The Dallas City Council is always asking about, and so I'm going to ask you how we're doing in Dallas as it relates to violent crime, and what initiatives have you put in place targeting violent crime?
Great question. So there was no secret back to when I was thinking about applying for this job of what the standard was going to be once I got here. There was an expectation that violent crime needed to be reduced in the city of Dallas. So we had some years where we struggled. And so, frankly put, I didn't start the job till like February 2nd. I got the job, I think December 23rd, 22nd or 23rd. And in between that time, I was working with criminologists from the University of Texas, San Antonio, to come up with a violent crime plan that both them and myself, with my experience and their educational experience and criminology background, could come up with together. And so, we came up with something that the criminologists will tell you is the best that criminal science has to offer in the country in the years that we've done it. And it's a 3-part, and it's in 3 parts. It's in hotspot policing, it's in place network investigations, and it's focused deterrence. I'll get to the hotspot policing and its results at the end, but place network investigations and focused deterrence are 2 methods that aren't just about necessarily police centric. Place network investigations is surrounded by the theory that we need to make places, instead of going out to the same place over and over again and arresting people, is we need to take care of the problem. And if that means, let's say you have a problem, let's make it this simple. You have an apartment complex that's dealing drugs, and there's been murders, and it's one in our hotspot area. Well, you just don't keep going back there as if it's some duck pond to pad your stats to keep arresting people. At one point, you serve a search warrant, and then you say to yourself, why are we coming back here? So then you bring in the city attorney's office, and you bring the landlords. Does the area need lighting? Does it need a better park? Do the streets have something to do with it? Is parking an issue? And so, you're talking about like 3 or 4 or 5 different departments that have to work together to take care of the problem once and for all. And so that's just in a simple way of explaining that. Focused deterrence is a method by which we need to impact individuals that are susceptible to a life in violent crime. Whether that's young men and women that are involved in gangs, whether that's individuals that are being released out of the state penitentiary coming back to Dallas County, is to talk to these individuals and really tell them 2 things. Tell them that I will use every tool in my arsenal to ensure that they don't hurt my community. And if they want to either end up going to prison or going right back to where they're coming from, to not act foolish when they get into our city. However, if they want to succeed and if they want to get out of that life, I want to be able to provide the mechanisms by which they can do that. Do they need education? Do they need job training? Do they need help with their families once they get home? Do they need mental health training or help? Do they need substance abuse help? Those are things that will help us become safer as well. Now, let me go back to hotspot policing, which we've been very successful. So, at this, before we started the violent crime plan, we were 18 murders over what was already a high year last year at the end of February. Today, as the day started, we were 9 murders below we were at. So we've come a long way. Now, we're not doing a touchdown dance by any stretch of the imagination, but the trends are trending in a very positive direction. Council asked me, and I'm glad they trusted me when they said, what are the metrics you're going to measure this by? And I'm like, if you look at the statistics that the criminologists were telling us, you would see the trend line. The trend line was going straight up. And I said, listen, I'm not going to tell you X percent lower or what have you. Our trend line needs to start going down. That's success to us. And again, they trusted me and they trusted us. And that's what we're seeing. We're seeing a plan that has gotten some national recognition early on with what we're doing differently than what other major cities are doing, because other major cities aren't seeing what we're seeing right now. They're certainly not seeing, they're certainly not seeing 5% reductions in murder as we're starting to see. We're still wrapping our arms around aggravated assaults and those victims, which are important. But we're doing our robbery numbers are amazing. Our murder numbers have done very, very well. And we're really starting to tighten down on aggravated assault incidents, which are important. And it's interesting as we talk about, we'll talk about the elephant in the room a little bit with regards to, community and police relationships. I say this a lot. And again, as I opened up with, I'm not a stay in the office kind of chief. I have not met a neighborhood yet in the city of Dallas. And I've been to quite a few places that regardless of race, language spoken, or economic status has ever asked me for less policing. And in fact, it's very often that our communities of color are the ones that are frustrated with us and me that I can't provide more. And I know that. And I always really like to tell people, and tell them, listen, when you get out of your office, regardless of what work you're in, you're able to kind of sift through the false narrative. Quite frankly, I'll call it a false narrative with regards to community and police. Yes, we need to police better. There's no question about it. Yes, we need to be procedurally just. But no, our communities don't want us to leave. And that's important to hear. It's important for me to reflect on that, to tell my rank and file that, because that pumps them up, particularly with all the false narrative and the mainstream media making the arguments they've been making when no one's ever taken the time to go out to our neighborhoods that are truly impacted by violent crime and ask them. Ask the true neighborhoods, because you won't hear that. And I can say that confidently because I hear it every day. So, we're gaining on our violent crime. We have a long way to go. Listen, ultimately in the end, particularly in areas of the city of Dallas that have historically been areas of concern, we didn't get into the mess overnight. We're not going to get out of it overnight. There's going to take some serious investments. We know that violent crime revolves around poverty, education, lack of jobs, the family structure. There's a lot of things that have nothing to do with police work in general that lead to some of our most vulnerable areas being deeply entrenched in violence. And so we can just only do so much, but we're going to have to really invest with the rest of our city and the great business community that we have here. I got to tell you a true story real quick. So I'm at